Hello to all of you out there in YouTube land. It is your good buddy Philtastic Phil here. And just like every comic book related YouTube channel, I'm going to talk to you tonight about Bad Idea. But I'm also going to open up a mail haul I have for a Bad Idea comic. Do you want to see what it is? Stick around. As I said in the introduction to this video, I have here my first and what may very well be my last Bad Idea comic book purchase. Now, I've been looking for this comic for quite some time. I've wanted to pre-order it since it was announced, but like many of you out there, I have had nothing but difficulty getting my hands on a single Bad Idea comic. And I understand that that's really kind of due to the unorthodox way that they operated. I say operated because, ironically, this book finally was delivered to me on my doorstep the very day Bad Idea announced that they were no longer operating in the same fashion. Like many of you out there, I'm very skeptical of this. I don't believe Bad Idea is shutting their doors, and yes, I do think that they'll be rebranded or reborn in some fashion or form. From a reader's perspective, what really attracted me to Bad Idea when I first heard about them, I'm going to say that was in March of 2020, maybe a little bit later, was some of the top talent that they were bringing to the table. I've made a list here. Matt Kindt, great writer. Adam Pollina, I loved his work on X-Force right after the Age of Apocalypse. Robert Venditti, his Green Lantern work is just amazing. Marguerite Bennett, Batwoman stuff. I collect very few Batwoman stuff. Her entire run is one that I have or I mostly have. I know that makes no sense, but whatever. Jody Houser, Jeff Lemire, everybody's favorite right now. Have you seen Sweet Tooth? And Peter Milligan, who I was really excited to see, as well as, of course, Zeb Wells. As I have been saying, I had a very hard time getting a hold of any Bad Idea comics at either of the approved LCSs that were in my area. The first one I called, to be honest with you, they never called me back. And look, I'm not dogging on any of these stores. I'm just telling you my experiences in reference to Bad Idea. The second store I contacted, and again, I'm not naming these stores, told me that unfortunately they haven't been receiving what they pre-ordered or what they were promised. And until the company could sort those things out, they were not going to do any other pre-orders or anything like that. So I kind of resigned myself to the fact I was just not going to get any Bad Idea comics. I did happen to ask a third LCS, whom I am very close with, why they weren't participating in the Bad Idea program. And we kind of went over some of the rules that they had for their retailers. And I'm going to go over some of these with you. And again, I understand that these are what made the company stick out, but I'm also going to go over why this made it so difficult for an LCS and for the fans like me who wanted to read these books to get these things in our hands. Okay, so rule number 1, comics limited to one person. Okay, I understand, that's fine. One comic per person. You don't want speculators. Great. Rule number 2, comics must be sold for no more than cover price for the first 30 days. Great rule. Problem that you may run into, I should say, because I do know of stores in my area that do this. They might get a comic that might be perceived as hot, put it aside, and kind of hide it from view, and then as the price creeps up, go ahead and try to sell it for a higher amount of money. I'm going to say that my LCS or any LCS that I personally go to does not do this practice at all. If you're an LCS that does this, I understand you need to make money as well. Number 3, comics can be offered to pre-order but cannot be shipped to anyone before the street date. Okay. Only issue that I have with that is, as an LCS, especially now that you have multiple distribution channels, I've seen firsthand how difficult it could be getting that shipment and sorting through that shipment and getting everything released, and you have people bothering you, people trying to buy stuff before they're supposed to buy it. It's crazy. While this thought was good, I don't think it was considering many of those other factors. Number 4, comics must be displayed in your highest traffic area of your store. Okay, I'll get into why that might be a little problematic a little bit as well. And number 5, and this was the main reason the LCS owner that I spoke to told me he could not and did not sign up with Bad Idea. Stores must display each promotional item for a predetermined amount of time. So when the store owner I spoke to told me about this rule, he said he was told he had to keep a promotional poster up in a prominent area of the store for one entire year. Now, the problem is that this particular store does not have a lot of ample viewing space, and whatever wall space they do have is covered by product. I would think that as a store, especially a small business, as well as a large business, your whole thing is you want to sell what's on your shelves. So if you have a poster up there for a year, that's dead space. That's space that's not going to make you any money. These rules got them a lot of attention. I was one of those people at first that were saying, this is great. Somebody's standing up for the guy who keeps missing his favorite comics because a bunch of speculators come in and buy everything up. Or your LCS didn't get it, or a million different things happen. I quickly saw, of course, how the year was unfolding. Now, Bad Idea was supposed to come out in 2020, May of 2020, but like everything else in 2020, it was delayed until March 2021. By this time, you had, I think DC had just announced that they were no longer going to be shipping through Diamond. A lot of LCSs were still closed down across the country due to COVID. And the ones that were operating were kind of trying to figure things out, like how to keep their doors open, how to keep their lights on. It wasn't the best time to say, by the way, here's a great comic line that your fans might be excited about, but you've got a lot of restrictions. The other issue I kind of really ran into with Bad Idea kind of put a sad taste in my mouth. I applaud them for upholding their rules. But at first, when they had a store that didn't follow the rules, they announced it online. So they're saying, hey, store XYZ is no longer a Bad Idea distributor. We've now appointed store ABC, I'm just sticking with letters, as a new LCS approved store. Whether you were going to go to that store or not, that first store, you really kind of put a bad taste in my mouth, because you're almost saying, hey, look, these guys were breaking the rules. They were doing something wrong. Whether what they were doing was within the Bad Idea rules or not, the LCS, I have to applaud them. They did come back and say, hey, look, we donated any extra money that was made on this book to a charity. No, we're not going to be distributing anymore, but that's just kind of how it is. You've got a set of rules that make it difficult to sell your product. It's not a great idea in my mind. I guess you could say it's a bad idea to just kind of kick the people who were trying to distribute your product in the teeth. I was kind of excited because there is an LCS in my area, one that I frequented before, that was announced about a month ago that they're going to start carrying Bad Idea products. So I was like, okay, great. I really want to check out ENIAC. I really like the idea of historical comics. There's some of my favorite: Magneto Testament, Moz, which I've talked about before, Peter Milligan's Britannia, and Peter Milligan again was announced as one of the talents. So I'm thinking maybe he's bringing Britannica back, because I haven't heard Valiant talking about it in a while. But alas, they came out with this press release last week saying Bad Idea is no more. All of our critics are right, and we will no longer be able to function in the same form. I mean, again, do I think it's FOMO? Yes. Brilliant marketing? I don't know, because the whole thing kind of put a bad taste in my mouth, especially after they said, hey, you can pre-order our final 5 releases. We're not going to tell you what they are, but if you go to an LCS and you pre-order all these, and we'll give you a sticker that gives you a free prize. And there's been some leaks basically not releasing the titles, not releasing the talent on them, though I suspect it will be from that list of creators who hasn't done anything with them yet. It has been said, I think I heard a rumor, and this is substantiated, that all 15 of these issues would total $119. So if you want to participate in this program, you have to go to an LCS, sight unseen, knowing nothing about the comics, the titles, anything like that, and give over $120 and say, yeah, I want these books that I may or may not like from this company who may or may not be able to put them through. And then what's going to happen after that? I mean, this is a case, I think, of when your own marketing, can come back to bite you. Despite all of these details, I do have to applaud Bad Idea on one thing. In a year where Marvel gave the X-Men a gigantic reboot, probably the best reboot and the best stories I've seen out of the X-Men in the past 20 years or so, and where DC brought in Future State and the sequel to Metal. I didn't read that one myself, but you've got these big events that are coming out. They're able to come along with a bunch of characters that nobody knows, nobody cares about, that you haven't seen in a movie, and really, really start some talk about it. I mean, look, part of the reason that I couldn't get a hold of this book was because the places I knew I can get it, I couldn't get it unless I was paying a hefty amount. And yes, some of those are within the 30-day period. I'm not going to say who. Really, for anybody to come along in this type of year and in this type of environment and really give creators a chance to tell their stories is great. Now, I don't know if Bad Idea operated like DC or Marvel, where you have to be hired for a submission, or for an like an Image Comics, where you basically have to have the comic all done and just go to them for distribution. I kind of think it's more along the lines of an Image. If their goal was just to get stories out there, great. Money-wise, and this is kind of why I tend to think, like everyone else, that this is nothing but show. This idea of Bad Idea closing their doors. I just don't understand how, if you're controlling the product that you put out, and the product that you are putting out is selling out everywhere where you put it to, unless you have some crazy, crazy high expenses that you just didn't anticipate and couldn't pivot from, I don't see how you could really fail. And these are not people who are new to the comic book industry. These are people who are veterans. And the head of the company ran Valiant, the Valiant reboot. You know, whether you liked it or not, look, it was well done and it was high quality. Well, enough of this talk about Bad Idea tonight. I think that really the future is going to tell what's going to happen next with Bad Idea. I'm going to go into the book I have here, and this is, again, one I've been so excited, really, to check out since it was announced. And again, this is from the Nerd Store out of Utah, who I found very, very easy to work with, and very reasonable, and very good shippers, and it seems like they're pretty good packers, too. Okay. Gemini Mailer, you can't go wrong. One thing I've also heard that the Bad Idea comics are printed and colored, I guess you could say, on higher quality materials and higher quality paper. And I'll check that out here. Okay, so the Bad Idea comic I've purchased, my first and possibly last Bad Idea comic, is Whalesville, Rocks and Minerals. I've been dying to check this out because Adam Polina, as I said earlier, is an artist I admired from my youth. What he did on X-Force after Age of Apocalypse, I think, was nothing short of amazing. I regard his style as very unique, and one that you didn't really even see at the time, but you see it even more or less, you see it even less now. So they kind of cramped it into this bag here. No damage to the book itself, and it feels like a trade paperback. Yeah, the paper is more what you would see on a trade paperback rather than a comic. And I know that this is a one-shot, first printing, but it definitely feels like a trade paperback. So I'll be checking this out. It definitely looks interesting, and again, you have some of that very unique Adam Polina style artwork. Look at that. Yeah, it looks to me more something like you would see out of like fine art, like a print, or even like a fairy tale, if I may, rather than a comic. So I'll be checking this book out. And again, as far as Bad Idea goes, we'll see what happens with them. You know, I do think they have a great amount of talent. I will not be pre-ordering the last 15 books from Bad Idea. You know, once something is announced, maybe I'll check it out, but I'm sorry, I'm not going to give $120 to blindly to a company that, to me, is just very good at generating buzz. I want to thank you again for checking out my channel tonight and checking out this video. I'll let you know how I like this book, of course, in the future. Go ahead and shoot me a like, give me a comment, and share this content as well. That's the only way that we get this channel to grow. And please consider subscribing if you haven't already. Thank you again for checking out my channel. I hope that you enjoy the rest of your night and the rest of your day. Peace, love, and comics. Good night.